Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for being here with us today. I'm New York State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. I'm here today with New York State Police Superintendent Joseph D'Amico, Rochester Police Department Commander Timothy List, other colleagues in law enforcement from the state police, from Customs and Border Protection, and other agencies to announce the takedown of two intertwined drug rings operating in western New York. After a 13-month multi-agency investigation, we've indicted 32 people. Most of them are already in custody, and they are accused of operating two large drug distribution networks that funneled heroin and cocaine into Rochester, Buffalo, and several neighboring communities. You can see the volume of drugs that was involved here, and we are very, very pleased to have shut down these very dangerous operations. You can also see firearms. These were violent, dangerous drug gangs. The investigation was known as Operation Crazy Train, was conducted by investigators from my office's Organized Crime Task Force, the state police, and about a dozen other agencies. This was a very large investigation involving a lot of collaboration with our colleagues in law enforcement, and we were very pleased with the sort of lack of ego and the seamless way everyone worked together on this particular project. In my office, I'm joined by Deputy Attorney General Perry Kadenoff from our Organized Crime Task Force, and also Assistant Deputy AG Maria Moran is with her. We're prosecuting this case. Investigator Christopher Reedy and Supervising Investigator Thomas Wolf were involved, also from our Organized Crime Task Force, as well as our Deputy Chief Eugene Black. This investigation was known as Operation Crazy Train because one of the gangs involved referred to themselves as the 730 C Block. Section 730 of New York law defines people who are deemed mentally incompetent to stand trial. They referred to themselves as crazies, and Crazy Train is apparently a line from an Ozzy Osbourne song that I think Chief D'Amico listens to a lot, and that's how we came up with this idea. So the rings were intertwined. One of them was primarily involved in transporting drugs from Puerto Rico. The other larger section of the group was transporting drugs from all over the U.S., from Massachusetts, the Bronx, Manhattan, Pennsylvania. As a result of this takedown, we have seized about $1 million worth of heroin, several $100,000 worth of cocaine, tens of thousands of dollars in cash, and firearms and some other concealment devices that we'll show you in a moment. Our investigators conducted hundreds of hours of wiretaps and cell phone conversations. They recovered text messages and discovered that, as alleged in court, these drug dealers had some very sophisticated means of concealing the contents of their transactions, and they had a very complex set of code words that they used for drug dealing. When someone asked for a Reggie Miller, that meant they wanted 31 grams of cocaine, because Reggie Miller's jersey number is 31. That's the kind of code these people use. They would refer to size 12 tennis shoes, meaning you want 12 bundles of heroin. Heroin was identified as boy, and cocaine was designated by saying girl. They referred to heroin also as new clothes. That meant a new batch of heroin was in town. So, as we have alleged in court, they used secret slang that we had to unravel as we proceeded with this investigation. They also used very elaborate schemes to conceal the narcotics. For example, during a traffic stop conducted as a part of our investigation, we discovered 3 kilos of cocaine stuffed into this end table, which has a false bottom. We also, in a shipment through the Postal Service, they attempted to send heroin and cocaine in these seemingly ordinary side mirrors for automobiles, but these were being shipped from Puerto Rico to Buffalo, packed with drugs. The drugs you see here, and this was a very, very large and very sophisticated operation. The drugs you see here have taken a deadly toll on our communities. This was a violent, sophisticated gang that operated for a long time. I'm very proud of the work we've done to take them down. According to the records in New York State, about 20% of the heroin seized by the Federal Drug Administration each year has 20% is going to New York. And the use of heroin in our state is on the rise. We know this is a problem, and we're taking a variety of steps with our colleagues in law enforcement to deal with the heroin epidemic that is now facing our state. Here in Monroe County, the medical examiner's office reported that 65 people overdosed on heroin in this area last year. That is up 500% from 2011, when heroin only claimed 11 lives. 11 still too many, but the explosion of heroin use in Western New York and across the state in general is something that we are attending to, and you can see that by the large number of law enforcement agencies that are working together in this operation and others that are ongoing. This is why we're working to track these drugs down, to shut these dealers down, and this is why a few weeks ago my office announced a new initiative called the Community Overdose Prevention Program, or COP, through which we are paying to reimburse any police agency in the state who are providing their law enforcement officers with an emergency antidote that stops people from dying from opioid or heroin overdoses. It's called naloxone, and more than 85 law enforcement agencies from around the state have already requested more than 2,700 naloxone kits. These save lives. In a pilot program we had in Suffolk County, where they were administering naloxone, they saved close to 200 lives just during the period of the pilot program. Agencies across the state are now training their officers how to use this. We require an all-levers approach in the state of New York to deal with the surge in heroin abuse. It is cheaper, it is stronger, and it is broken out of any sort of particular pattern of neighborhoods. It's used by the rich, the poor, the middle class. It's used in the cities. It's used in the suburbs. And it's something that we are all working together to try and do something about. So I'd like to thank everyone for cooperating in this. It did involve the Sheriff's Department, the Department of Corrections, the Drug Enforcement Administrator, our colleagues at Customs, the National Guard Counter-Narcotics Unit. So this was a very, very sophisticated drug ring, and it required a sophisticated operation by law enforcement to take them down. I'm very proud of the work we did here. And now I'd like to turn the podium over to Superintendent D'Amico.
Thank you, Attorney General Schneiderman. It's through our continued partnership with the Attorney General's Office and the Organized Crime Task Force that we're once again here to announce that another major drug operation is out of business. Cocaine and heroin traveled here to New York State from across 3 other states and from the islands of Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. Operation Crazy Train involved the sale of heroin and cocaine with the ever-present threat of violence. As we all know, as you heard from the Attorney General, heroin use has been on the rise in this country, and this group capitalized on that problem. They ramped up their distribution of heroin because they saw an opportunity, and selling heroin is very lucrative. They wanted to make money, and they had no concerns or thoughts of the devastation or damage that their drugs would do to our residents and our communities. Some of these people embedded themselves in our communities and wove their drug dealing operations into their business and family lives and their activities. A couple of the suspects, Agilio Adames and Mercedes Hughes, blended into our community so well that they could be seen living in the suburb, driving BMWs, running legitimate businesses, even attending school functions, while at the same time consorting and working with international drug dealers. Mercedes Hughes of Buffalo comes from a drug trafficking family with a history. Her husband and his brothers previously arrested for large-scale drug operation. The husband is currently doing time in federal prison. She ran a clothing boutique and a salon in the Buffalo area. She also transported drugs and money back and forth between Buffalo and New York City. She hid her drugs among the garments that she transported. And on one occasion, the small business owner and mother was interacting with international drug dealers, took a short break to attend a school function with her preteen daughter, and then immediately resumed her illegal business. She was so comfortable living this dual role that she once brought her daughter with her to New York City to pick up one of our subjects, a known heroin supplier, drove him to a meeting here in Rochester so that he could collect money owed to him from a prior shipment. I mean, the point in telling you all of this is that these suspects are not low-hanging fruit. They're major players in the drug trade. They were living among us, appearing to be typical middle-class families on the outside, while secretly running large drug trafficking organizations that span from Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic through New York City, Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts, right here to our state and right here to the city of Rochester and our neighboring Buffalo. And if it wasn't for the great work of all of our law enforcement partners, these dealers may have gone undetected. This case shows the commitment, the hard work, and the dedication that it takes to dismantle these drug operations once and for all. Couldn't have done it without our partners. Once again, I'd like to thank Attorney General Eric Schneider for being a leader in the fight against illegal drugs in our communities. I'd also like to thank you, General, for all you did to get naloxone to the police agencies around the state. Surely a drug that could save lives. I want to thank the great partners that we in the state police have with Deputy Attorney General Perry Kadnoff, Deputy Chief Gene Black, and the great team they have over here at the Organized Crime Task Force, the work of Homeland Security Investigations, the U.S. Border Patrol, Commander Tim List in the Rochester Police Department, the folks over at Granite, Sheriff from Monroe County, Pat Flynn, and New York State Parole. They're all great professionals and great partners. And last and certainly not least, I want to thank the men and women in New York State Police. Here today are the troop commanders from Troop A, Mike Soretto, and Troop B, Scott Crozier, and the great work that's done by our community narcotics enforcement team under the leadership of Major Wayne Olson, Lieutenant Marty McKee, Senior Investigators Matt Butts, and Paul Kelly, who were also here. You know, last time I stood up and announced a case takedown, I thanked everybody except the CNET folks. And I just want to tell you, great case, great work like always. I appreciate it. And lastly, just Trooper Eric Harper, our K-9 handler, and K-9 JD, a great job, working out very well for us. So thank you very much. General?
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you. I forgot to mention our K-9 agent, JD, who I gather is here somewhere if you want to interview him later. Listen, as the superintendent and I have both said, and I cannot emphasize this enough, heroin use is on the rise. The profits to be made are massive. More and more people who you would never have thought years ago would try heroin are trying it. The stigma seems to have been lost. There are very sophisticated gangs taking advantage of this. This one was very sophisticated. They had this complex set of codes. They had very creative ways to hide the narcotics. The only way for us to deal with this is what I call the all levers approach. We have to get every agency collaborating. We have to get information from informants, and we encourage people to come forward when they see illegal activity. This is an epidemic, and we all have to work together to solve it. I'm very grateful for the work we've done today to bring this gang down. Our efforts will continue.